Hi guys, today I'm doing my best to do a video explaining the importance of how you hold your sticks and what you do with your hands, and the difference between someone that starts out and someone who has gotten to a point where they want to get more out of their play but they don't really know how. So if that's kind of where you are, that you're struggling with getting control on your doubles, maybe your speed seems like an issue, that you can't get as fast as you want to get, learning the correct way to hold, or a more effective way to hold, is super important. So what I've found is, and this is just all my opinion, so if you don't agree with me, then good for you, and some of it is stuff that I will have learned, and some of it is stuff that I've heard and stuff I've made up, and it's really just where my head's at. And if it makes sense to you, then I'm delighted and it's useful. And if it makes no sense to you, some other description will. So don't feel like this is me declaring that this is the one and only way. There's my declaration of what's the word when you don't want to take responsibility for other people giving out to you. Sorry, I left a fan heater on, it's going to make noise. When you... It's like a caveat. Disclaimer. Oh Christ, I'm going to have to edit that somehow. Anyway, that was my disclaimer. Please understand that this is my understanding, and if it doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. So, what I have noticed is a lot of people, when they pick up their sticks for the first time, without even being told, will get very, very close to holding correctly. So it's the matchstick grip will usually be grabbed, like most things can be grabbed, and a lot of what they're doing is correct. They're not holding on the wrong end, and they're not holding in the middle. They usually hold pretty close to, if not up in the hand, they will come down and have a little bit of the stick exposed, which is really what you want. The problems start on which fingers they hold with, and the majority of the time they hold with all fingers. And sometimes as they start to play, they stop holding with all fingers and they use their index finger to hold the tip of the stick or the top of the stick down and make it do exactly what they want. The thing is, a stick is not like your hand. It's more like, the example I use is basketball, because it has this natural ability to bounce, just like a basketball does. If you just take a basketball and you drop it, it will do dump, 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 until it wastes all its energy. Every bounce has a little bit less in it. So that's what our stick is doing. It's using up its energy, and every bounce has a little less energy to give as it spends it into the drum. Now, if you think about how would you bounce a basketball, you don't hold the basketball and push it to the ground and lift it up, and push it to the ground and lift it up. That's not how you bounce a basketball. That's ridiculous for most people. They know by looking at someone bouncing a basketball how to do it. But you think about what's really happening when you bounce a basketball. It's really complex physics. It's the brain calculating how much energy the ball is using on a bounce, and when the ball returns to the hand, adding exactly that much energy back into the ball so that the ball will bounce the full distance down again and spend the energy that was added, and it will come right back up to the hand again. We're able to do this calculation almost in our subconscious. We're not thinking about, and I will add this much force and it will come back, and I'll add this much force. It's all subconscious. So as you see your basketball player just bouncing the ball, they're not using their conscious brain to focus on how much energy they're putting into the basketball. They're thinking about their next move. They're thinking about who am I going to pass to, how am I going to get around this defender. And this it's a passive thing that's happening, but it's so detailed that it's actually fascinating that we're able to do that with our brains. And that's kind of what we need to learn to do with our drumsticks. A lot of people start out and they experience this with their sticks, this unruliness, this bounciness, and it's horrible. It's not what they want at all. They want the stick to do exactly this. So they'll do one of two things usually. They'll grab so tight, they'll white knuckle it, and they'll force the stick to only hit once. Maybe they'll use the index finger and that kills the bounce, and then the stick is doing exactly what it's told. I call that Harry Potter finger because it looks like you're casting a spell instead of playing drums. It's a joke that I use with new students to try and get them out of the habit of that, but we don't go into the details of why it's important to learn to control your stick and not choke your stick. So the back fingers can choke your stick by holding too tight when their job isn't really to hold. If you look at that hand, those fingers act more like brakes than they do grapples. They're allowing the stick movement in its own little place there, very much like someone dribbling a basketball. The fingers can come in and give a little bit of energy to the stick. So as you're bouncing, you continue to dribble that stick and add energy to it so it doesn't spend its energy and stop bouncing. Okay, this is detailed stuff, and I'm not trying to confuse you, but you're not going to get this right on your first attempt if you have never tried this before. That's not important. You shouldn't expect yourself to. What you are going to get is an awareness of what you're doing. That is the most important thing that you can get. That as you're trying to do your doubles, that you say to yourself, hey, am I choking these sticks now? Am I playing all with arm and not with wrist? Because your arm can't go fast like your wrist can, and your wrist can't go fast like your fingers can. So if you start to play smarter instead of harder, you'll play better, instead of just forcing yourself into an injury or being tired all the time when you're trying to play. You can't play a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour set and play with your shoulder because it's not possible. You just waste too much energy and you'll hurt yourself. So you got to learn to play smarter. A good exercise for this is to actually use that analogy I used earlier on of the basketball dribbling, and intentionally get your fingers sending that stick back. Do doubles. Watch your arm to see if your arm is moving. Okay, a lot of people, they just can't get out of the habit of moving their arm. So this is where I have to credit two good friends of mine, because we were together for a week of playing drums in Folsom under Mike Johnson, and every morning before we started our day of drumming, we would go for a walk down by the river, by Folsom River. So basically, the two guys I'm going to credit for this are Chris Hancock from Rooster Thrones. Chris makes custom-made drum thrones, and you got to check him out. He's amazing. And the second guy is Mike Schertenlieb. I've written down Mike's bands because there are so many, and I can't pronounce one of them. So Flexi Decibel, King Crabapple, Short Haired Domestics, and Delta. Decalar tones. Sorry, Mike. You can. I googled how do you pronounce the name of the band, and I got a load of science references from Wikipedia, but no audio clips of someone saying it. So I did my research. It didn't work out. Anyway, Mike's in a bunch of bands, and Chris is an absolute don when it comes to making thrones and playing as well. He's an animal on the kit. Both of them are, and I'm like absolutely honored. Card full. What do I do? The card just filled. This is what happens when you give away your spare SD card and you use your other one to do it behind the scenes. sorry, my card filled up because I'm using a small one. So I was thanking the guys, and they get credit for coming up with this idea. So we were walking around the path that's around the river, and we were all drumming on forearms like this. Now what this does is, this movement means you can't play with your arm. You can't physically play with your arm when you're playing on your arm. So moving your arm doesn't move the stick closer to your arm. You have to use your wrists and you have to use your fingers. See that? This inverted sticking, holding it backwards, is not something that we as a trio invented. The invention was the name, and I'm almost sure that Mike Schertenlieb came up with the the sentence. He said, it almost looked like Raptor hands, because you're like, ah. So that stuck with me, and that's why the guys are getting credit on this, because all three of us are there, and that's where it came from. Raptor hands. It's amazing. You have to use your wrists. You have to use your fingers. It's hard as all hell. You shouldn't hit to the point where you're hurting yourself. That's not what it's about. It's about training your wrists. You don't have to play hard to train your wrists. It's about training your fingers. You don't have to play hard to train your fingers. You got to get your fingers into the place. So start with singles. And you can be doing other things while you're doing this, going for a walk like we did. Just getting used to the concept that you can play with your wrists and not with your arms, not with your shoulders. All right. When you're able to do that, try any other rudiments. So doubles is the obvious next choice. And this is where the fingers really come in, because on single hits, it can be all in the wrists. On doubles, it's very clunky to do it all in the wrists. So using fingers for the second tap means you can get actual doubles. Now that is something worth practicing. And then you can do your paradiddles. And it's class. And just being around impressive drummers, impressive people like these guys is inspiring. And that was where the phrase came from. The inverted sticking thing, like Mike Johnston had taught that before, and I'd seen it done other places too. That's pretty known, but the Raptor Hands name for it, which is probably the coolest thing about it, is all us. So that's it, guys. I apologize for the janky video and the cut in the middle due to small SD card. I hope this was beneficial. Go check out the guys and their bands and their businesses, because they're beautiful human beings and deserve your love and support. Thank you for watching, and I will see you the next time I pluck up some courage to turn on this camera. Until then, it's Christmas time right now, so happy Christmas, and I will probably see you in the new year, because I'm slow. I'm slow with all this stuff. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.